This is one of the hardest things to have a discussion with people. It's accepting the reality that you've exhausted all of your avenues and it's time to move on. Now, let me tell you, I often have taught, whenever I used to practice law, I used to tell clients every time, at what point should I move on? And I would have to say the only person that can say at what point you can move on is really you. But really, that's not the question that you're asking. What you're really wanting to know at the end of the day is there other avenues that I haven't considered that I should consider because this is something I'm passionate about? Or am I at that point where there's nothing else more I can do to get the desired result and I have to just accept the consequences? That's ultimately what you're asking. And now don't get me wrong, there be people say, oh, that's not what I mean. I'm like, okay. So as I drill down, it's usually what it comes to is sometimes when you have a situation that occurs and you are so passionate about it that you know there's a wrong, there's an injustice and so forth like that, accepting the reality that there's nothing more you could do is almost a defeatist mindset. You feel like I'm giving up and no one is asking you to give up. What I often tell people is if you're coming to me within the context of a legal parameters, that sometimes unfortunately there may not be any more options available from a legal standpoint. Now, there may be options from a public relations standpoint. There may be options from a grassroots community standpoint. There may be options from a political standpoint. And those are all lanes that you can operate in. Unfortunately, some of those lanes will bring you visibility to some of these problems, but some of these lanes may not bring you a remedy to these problems. When you're coming to me as an attorney, I'm looking at it within the scope of what legal remedy are you trying to obtain? And sometimes, unfortunately, the legal remedy that you're trying to get may not even exist, or there may be barriers, or there just may be opportunities, or have they fully been exhausted? So when somebody comes to me and they say, is it time for me to move on? I have to remind them that depending on what it is that you are trying to achieve, it may mean that you have come to a point where you have to reevaluate what your strategies and tactics are to achieve that goal and asking yourself, can you do it within the context of the legal boundaries, or do you need to expand beyond that? Because the harsh reality is, legally, you may not have any more options. Meaning you may have availed yourself the administrative process, you may have the civil process, the appeals process, you may have done all of those things possible and not gotten the desired result you're looking for. So you may find yourself in the unique position of having to now explore other options as well outside of the legal parameter. So when I hear people ask me, is it time to move on? I say the only person that can answer that question is you. But what you really want to ask yourself is it time to now look at my circumstances and say, are there other options or avenues I need to pursue to get to the desired goal? And how committed am I to follow those to the end?